gives you the option like, yo, they're live streaming it.
Yeah.
You can leave if you want. I've got it.
Now's your chance. Time to bail.
I guess it's working now.
Woo! All right, let's do this. Leroy Jenkins.
So I guess we can start by introducing ourselves. Did either of you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm Darryl Ayles. I'm a co-founder over at OHFP Film Productions. My main duties are cinematographer, and I write and direct also here and there. And yeah, co-founded with Jamar Forbes, who I don't know, she might pop in, maybe not, who knows, but she's around sometime, somewhere around here too. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and I'm Tad Brock. I am the founder of Auteur Independent Films, and I also work really close with Orange Hat Film Productions as a producer and a bunch of other things. And yeah.
Writer director event too, yeah.
I guess, yeah, I'm writer director event.
Yeah.
Didn't know if we're ready to jump into the whole promotion thing, but
I mean, you just mentioned producer. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. That's true. I mean, we're talking about Orange Hat though, so I was just like, well, I work with Orange Hat, so
they're co-productions at this point, man. Co-productions.
Yeah, I do.
I mean,
I do a little bit.
That's what the credits say.
I dabble in a little bit of everything. So.
Let's start with 44 caliber. Like the process to get the idea, write the script, and all that pre-production stuff.
Awesome. Well, I mean, like, first of all, thanks for the awesome review, man. It was great to check it out, and it was very in depth. Like, I was really glad that you watched it a second time and gathered what you gathered, because, you know, again, at a very indie level, there's a lot of paths that, you know, viewers can kind of watch this, which is kind of fun about the second watch. But yes, it all began way back when I had just kind of finished a couple of when would it have been around? So I was just finished Look What You Have Become, and it was this big 3-season miniseries, and it was a bit of an undertaking for a really low budget production. And after we had wrapped that up, we were kind of in the mood, like we wanted to take a bit of a break, so there was a little lull. But in the break we had, I had ended up just, you know, coming across this crazy story. Like I mentioned a couple times, if anybody's seen, you know, the behind the scenes or whatnot, there's a more in-depth explanation. But yeah, essentially just heard a story from a friend at work. He like works with me. He's not like somebody who works with me every day, but on a drive to the bus stop one day, he told me the story, and it just stuck in my head for weeks. So after that, yeah, I Look What You Become was mob based, so I was really kind of skeptical about getting into pre-production on another like mob thing, but I just couldn't get the idea out of my head. So I had worked on, I believe I had an almost finished script, and it reached to a point where I just happened. I always remember we went to see Shape of Water, and Tad was one of the first times I'd seen him in years. And basically afterwards went to Fox and the Fiddle. Sad it just closed down. But we went to Fox and the Fiddle, and I forget before or after, and I ended up just kind of rough pitching him what I had planned for this movie. I think he even rough pitched me Vent at the time too, or something.
One of his projects. We kind of exchanged.
Yeah, that was years before. So it kind of sat. Yeah, geez. And it sat for a little while. But he was basically like, here, if you wanted to make that crazy story, we could use this, and that from down in Petrolia, especially if you come down and do a pre-scout. So over the course of, I don't even know what it was, maybe the first 3 or 4 months of pre-production, we were kind of like setting things in place. And I think I believe we then took the winter to kind of finish out pre-production and started in the spring, if I remember correctly. Like, it was a long period of pre-production for 44. We wanted, we knew there was a lot of moving pieces, and
we had all the actors and stuff on board beforehand, and we basically were like, as soon as we're ready to shoot, we were going all in, and like we had to make sure that we had all the locations set down and everything was like planned to a T with that movie. So
yeah, totally. And kind of the mentality behind that whole pre-production. It's not, okay. So Vent was very much like, when you pitched me this idea, I thought like, that's our like single room, small story, like that typically people would make for their first movies. I was like, let's tackle that sophomore movie where people go like way too far and push in way too many areas. Cause for me, it was like, the further we push, the more we'll figure out where we settle. You know what I mean? The higher we aim, and because you're never going to get everything you want, right? So it was all about like pushing really hard and then getting that compromise back, but in a strategic way, as weird as it sounds. So like, yeah, I don't know. It was like, that's why we took on a 3 plot line kind of interweaving. Like it's no Pulp Fiction, but we play with time a little bit, and we kind of made, a bit of the decisions for how the stories would kind of interweave. And once that was decided, like Tad said, we were right off to casting it, getting really in early, like specifically we got Lana B in very early so she could help craft her character. Before Tad was even cast as the role, he was helping shape Coke again, which is why I think it was one of the good reasons why he ended up in the role. And yeah, it was a pretty crazy process, but I think taking 9 months for your first film, at least 9 months, is kind of essential. And it kind of makes me iffy when, you hear other people wanting to jump in like quicker than that. Cause it's like, the first one takes some time, because yeah, I don't think we could have pulled off this like weirdly vast story, because it is still small, like, it's still an indie film, but to do all the amount of characters and, the length too, we knew we wanted to run a little long in the runtime and be able to do these kind of experimental beginning and ending montages to kind of make everything flow. So making a lot of these decisions in pre-production made it actually, comparatively to some of the stuff we've shot later, really easy to film. Like I say that now, it was still hard at the time. You still spent those nights where you're doing long, but it was like pre-production. I cannot understate how essential it was when it came to 44. It was basically the whole film. Like it was, we still had freedom on set here and there, but yeah. A perfect first question, Justin, because yeah, that was the biggest part of it all.
Let's talk about the production, like how you got to the point where you could shoot all that stuff, and then the actual production itself.
Okay. Well, one key part was we had, I don't know if, I'm trying to remember if I think I had just started saving up from after Look What You Become to just kind of save up a little bit of a budget, because once we knew our budget, we could kind of lock in what we were actually doing in the production. And because I don't know how to, because we knew what we were paying for, what locations we weren't, and like where we were going to land. So I don't know, man, when it came into production, it was kind of a different beast. Like I said, we'd done so much work in pre that we had done like a really good job to plan out where we were going for everything. So there was like trips to Guelph, there was a chunk of shooting Petrolia, and then it was bringing in all these extra actors. Like it was a crazy amount of like actually working with all these different people to get these little snippets of scenes, because in the end I don't think much was cut. from the film. I think it
No,
was
no.
just those two scenes on the
I
Blu-ray.
don't
and
think, I think we should also not understate the fact that no matter how much you guys were ahead of the game in pre-production, we still hit a lot of snags and there was still a lot of issues during production. Particularly, there was the one where the generator just wouldn't start working. So we had no lights whatsoever. So we had to light an entire scene
Oh,
using our cell phones.
which is the funniest part. I remember Justin specifically in his review said how great the cinematography was in the scene with me and Spencer, and that it's that scene. We had
That's
no
the scene.
lighting. So in even in one of the shots, like right, if you can see me right now, it's like right in the corner of the frame, there's like this little black, I don't know what to describe it. It's a cell phone. It is where the light is coming from. So it's about like knowing which corners to cut when, because I thought, of all the scenes, we were gonna go balls out and try and get this one with cell phone light. And it meant we only got so many takes. We weren't going to run that over and over and over again. And you're right. Like, I think just considerably, like, comparatively to our latest production, I think it was a much smoother process. Having all the actors in really early did a great job to like have time to play on set. We also had a really good long schedule because we only really shoot weekends. So yeah, that's kind of a key to it all too. So every time we would revisit it, like I would give us a little bit of like buffer on the beginning and end of locations, so we had time to play. There's not much improv in the movie, but I think we did a lot more improv on set to get natural, and then I would kind of just become a little bit more of like, yeah, can we go back to that first line, and they're like natural enough that you can get back, because yeah, a lot of production, I'm not the greatest director, I'll admit that myself, but I think I've got some pretty good tactics for specifically dealing with non-actors. I feel like a lot of random performances in this movie that I would not expect from non-actors came out fantastic, and it was about like playing to them, like playing to the person, and not like over directing. Like I said, just give them a bit of time to play around on set, and when we're all giggling and feeling good, that's when we bring it back and we can start trying to get more of the actual story beats in there. Because it's only, you only need to get what you need for the edit. And Christian Mitchell did an amazing job editing this movie, but I knew I always wanted to give him options. So having that buffer in production was really key. I think we ran a little bit longer on production days than we were planning originally, like a little bit longer.
We were hoping to shoot over mostly the summer, and we did kind of drip into the fall. There was a few days where the weather started to change, and we're like, well, if we don't get it now, we're not going to get it. So yeah, and we were shivering our butts off in the cold trying to get some shots. So.
Yeah, but I mean, still, retrospectively, we only really went that little bit later because we had a much easier like shooting schedule. I don't know, because I guess that's the thing I can't understate when it came to the production of like something really low budget where you don't have a lot of money. Like you need to maximize absolutely everything, and I think we did a really good job of that. Because I guess the last thing to really touch on talking about production is that the whole final fight scene, which Tad choreographed for us, and we both kind of did, but you were more of the fight centric.
There was like a solid day where we would just kind of like, well, like, oh, she'll like do this move and then counter with this, and we just kind of I like wrote it all down and drew little like made sure that everything was kind of
yeah, and we still had leeway there too. I think it was planned a bit
when
more
we got
grandiose.
to the location too, there was a lot of like, well, we can't do this because this location doesn't warrant it, so we have to mix and match and kind of improvise a little bit. So.
Yeah, but then you keep the things that are essential, right? Like we knew that the stabbing through the arm was crucial to make the scene work. We knew the interjection of Christian at the end of the fight scene, because that whole fight scene is like I'm honestly really proud of like the last 20 minutes of 44. Like there's a lot, and you did call me out. There's one single out of focus shot in that last sequence, but it's one of those sometimes you gotta edit for the quality of acting above everything else, and if it means a little bit of a soft focus, you gotta take it. Because again, so that was all I think over like 4 solid days or nights or whatever you want to call them, like going out, looking at this plan, looking at like the beats of what we needed to get, and like maybe today we only had 2 goons, or maybe today we only had Josh and Parisian, and like it was about figuring out how we could make this giant puzzle piece of a fight scene work. And then the extra bit was that I always wanted to have the Otis Redding song over top, because I mean, hot tip for those out there, Otis Redding in Canada, there's a few other places, I think Australia and a couple other countries, is completely in the public domain now, just because of 50 years after death. So anything like original by Otis Redding is just out there. So I really, I didn't want to use like Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, but like Try a Little Tenderness, like is a song that meant a lot to me. So to kind of pull an Edgar Wright and have this like finale where like the beats line up with the gunshots, and like, it's not forever, but I think, she has this theme of listening to records, that like that building to that final sequence, like I'm really proud of it. And it took a lot more work than the minute and a half I think that lasts on screen of it. It was craziness. And then yeah,
such a great way to end the film too, though, because it's like,
yeah,
it builds up to that entire moment. It's just like, you got to have that kind of climax, I guess. So like, it was so much fun to shoot that scene. And yeah, like a lot of what you were saying too is like, a lot of it, like a big part of filmmaking is kind of the problem solving aspect. And like, it's like, well, how are we going to do this? We only have this actor and this actor. It's like, okay, well, we'll shoot all of their stuff and then like make it look like everybody's in the same room at the same time. And yeah, it's a lot of that's just kind of the fun of it all, though. So
totally. And I will add, though, just because when you started saying that, just made me realize, like we have never used a blank or any like live kind of fire in any of our movies. If you see all these guns in our movies, sorry to spoil the illusion, but we only ever use either completely plastic, like completely toy guns, but like painted and like weathered up, or we use, like, for the main gun in 44, it's an airsoft gun, but we at no point in production even had an air cartridge in it. It has like faux bullets where you would need to load a BB into the end, and never was a BB in it. I just want to put that out there because there's a lot of gun work in our movies, and with recent tragedy and whatnot, like I'm a firm believer that all this gun stuff can be done in post. And it was just about making sure the actors knew about recoil and all this other stuff, because that was also a giant part of this finale. All before any of this, like we've been taught in film school and whatnot, like we never forgot, how serious a firearm and even in public can be. Like going back to Look What You Become, even we had a scene where there was, these 2 guys meeting up outside, and it was like a showdown, but they both had plastic pistols. We called the London police. We had, put out, it's basically like an anti-APB where like this specific location, there's this specific gun with these specific people, so that even if there is something similar in the area, they might attend to that. But like, yeah, gun safety is so key, man. I just can't understate that. Just wanted to get that out there while we're talking about finale of 44.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of the questions I was going to ask.
Oh, sorry.
About the guns and like what your thoughts were on that recent tragedy. So
jump the gun a little bit there, Darryl.
Oh, that's no boo. Okay, so I just to kind of a little button on that to kind of finish the last bit of your question. It is an absolute tragedy. Hearing about it makes, I don't want to swear too much because we're live and whatnot, but it really boils my blood. There's a million things that could happen to prevent it from getting there, and I feel like the more we hear about the case, the more knots in my stomach I get. And I really just, I hope that at the bare minimum, maybe this can be, the moment that causes some serious change. I'm a firm believer. I always, like I said before, I've never had a live anything on set yet. From this point going forward, no matter how large my production, no matter what, there will never be a blank in a gun. There will never be there will only at most ever be like, I don't even know if I could say air firing from like a fake gun like that. Even that to me now doesn't sit well. Like it would take a lot to convince me to have anything more than the actor faking it, because it is literally the cheapest effect you can do. And you can do it well too. It'll cost like a bit more to do it well, but like, I think we'll reach a point now where people don't actually care about fake looking stuff, because now I think that was enough in the zeitgeist that everybody can realize like The Crow was one thing. And then this all these years later with even more safety protocols, like I I'm at a loss for words. It is so absolutely gut wrenching that something like that could happen. And yeah, I feel completely terrible for the families involved, because it is not something that was worth it. You know, again, unless, you know, there's some major change that comes from it, even at, so it's really hard to say. Yeah,
The
really,
ultimate
really rough times
tragedy
there.
is the ultimate tragedy is that it was 100% preventable. Like that's just kind of the thing, right? Like every excuse that you hear, I guess, is just kind of like, oh well, you know, you got to use blanks because like you get the actor's natural reaction when they pull it and it fires and stuff like that. They're actors. Like if they can't, like if they need that, I just don't see it. Like I think at the ultimate, like fake it. That's your entire job. Like if the gun goes off and you're supposed to be startled, you fake it. Like it's, yeah,
100%.
it sucks. It's 100% just it's a tragedy.
So for Vent, how did you deal with that? Like, I know they were kind of like off screen, kind of a little bit, but how did that work?
Yeah, it was a plastic gun, the one that Lana uses, and a lot of it was just off screen, like I said. That mostly came down to an artistic choice because I wanted to stay inside the vent at all times. I didn't want to cut outside of the vent for a big action scene kind of thing. If there's going to be guns going off, it's got to be from Andy Kent's point of view. And yeah, a lot of it was just sounds off of the internet that you can get for free, and like putting it all together into this big kind of climactic showdown that you only hear and you see his reaction to. And that I just thought that was an interesting way to kind of tell the showdown, the story of the final showdown kind of thing.
So back to 44, how did you end up choosing to shoot it on portions of it on film?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to address this at the beginning. So, there was no film shot for this movie. That's all. It's basically a LUT. I mean, that's kind of simplifying it, saying that. But no, the look was actually built. Christian, the editor, had kind of a way he was coming at it, in terms of like the effects he was adding to the footage, because I kind of gave him some tips because I have, you know, worked with like 16 mil more than 8 mil. I can't say I've worked with 8 mil much, but I did enough research to figure out what the look was. And then Zach Litt, who ended up doing our special effects, he kind of saw it and was like, ooh, it's missing just like a couple little spices. So together they ended up building this look that was the reel of film. And that's why on the Blu-ray I put it on as that, because that, to me, it was always like, continuity wise, right? Like I wanted that to feel like this 3-minute long Super 8 reel that contained like everything we had seen in the movie, like the selective shooting way almost, and put it all chronological, right? And yeah, so there was no actual film. Every single bit of footage in 44 was shot on my Canon XA10, which is it's actually in use right now. Jamar is using it, so I can't pull it over. I might pull it at some point during production, just during this interview, bring it over. But yeah, no, the entire production, it's a camera I used through Look What You Become. So I had become really close with it. I'd shot a lot of live concerts with it. So I knew how far to push it. It was almost like my own kind of, I don't know what to say. Like, I guess you just get to learn a camera at the end of the day, right? You get to learn how far you can push the highlights and the darkness. And this, believe me, I mean, this sounds really up my own chuff, but I have not seen anything else shot anywhere near as good as 44 on the XA10. Most of the time, people regard it as like this like B camera news TV kind of style. Like it's like a prosumer camcorder. So to me, I saw like a lot of capability in the specs that were there, because especially it has this insane internal stabilization. So that was kind of my sacrifice, choosing like a fixed lens. It was a great lens range, don't get me wrong. Like equivalently, it was like a really wide, I think it's like to 35. I think it's like a 24 to 120 or something. Like it's an insane zoom range. So I had kind of learned how to use that zoom range to my advantage. everything I shot, like I overlit everything and then stopped down like crazy to kind of treat it like, I mean, that's what you used to do with film, right? Because of how slow the film speeds were with a old 16 mil and whatnot. But yeah, and yeah, I've always kind of carried this idea through my cinematography. I'm sure I've said this a million times before, so I'll keep it kind of quick here. But I like to push myself as a cinematographer in like what if I was starting in the 1980s kind of deal, or like late 90s, right? So like there would be no digital, there would be no quick cut arounds, there would be, you know, maybe I could get my hands on some black and white 16 mil. So that's why I shot Look What You Become black and white. It wasn't really like an artsy decision. It was like forcing myself to work with shadows and composure first. And then after that, 44 was like working with super 16 color film almost, right? Like I finally went crazy. I got to use as much vibrant colors as I wanted, move the camera as much as I wanted to, and just kind of go wild, because Look What You Become's a lot more fixed, I find. And then, going forward, even in my next project, it's all about like stepping up through my career as if like I had to earn the higher resolution or something. Like it's just something internal that helps to push me. Like, because I did learn a lot about just composure and light and shadow. Like I recommend everybody start shooting black and white first. It'll just teach you a lot. Like that's just at the end of the day. Because we could use any color filter we wanted. Like we started using like crazy colored gels only because of like their thickness and how much it was, you know, displacing the light. Like it was really weird how we started to kind of gaff. And so it's just been this progression, and I knew 100% that I was going to shoot 44 all on the XA10. It was like a very early decision, and I did some pre-shoots and I did some tests, and I think like, and it's funny you mentioned from the deleted scenes, the one I actually can't remember what the other deleted scene is, but the one I can remember is Cody waking up in bed with the hammer, and you kind of noted like, yeah, it just feels kind of not right, and like that's it, like that's why it's on the cutting room floor. Like there ended up just being a couple scenes where either I couldn't get it there with the lighting, or like the acting, it was too quick and we didn't have enough time to play, and it just happens sometimes, right? So the camera was essential though. I love that XA10 to death. Its name is Elijah. And I've shot, like I said, shot so much stuff with it that it's ridiculous, and still shooting with it to this day. I would still probably shoot a live show with that over my Blackmagic because it's got great infrared too. Didn't mention that. But yes, not to waffle about the XA10 forever. But I was very curious. Like, did you have a guess of what camera I shot it on? Because it kind of sounded like you were unsure at the end of the review.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the main camera was, but the 8mm or whatever one, it actually looked like you had shot it on it, so that's why I wasn't entirely sure.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. All the same sensor. That was all just color correction. Which I guess again, real quick, we didn't really color correct the movie. And every time I say this, Christian rolls his eyes, because yes, we did color correction here and there. Like sometimes you'd raise something or like contrast a shot because I changed the lighting slightly. Sure. But I mean, in terms of like how nowadays you shoot raw and then you color correct the film, we did not do that. Like the XA10 doesn't really do the best log, but it's a Canon color space. So if you can work within that, again, it's almost like shooting film. You get to learn what that maxes out as. And it's really cool to find like how clean the glass is once you stop down, and I don't know, it's really, really cool to see a camera that it's not like an Ari where like, say I shot, if I shot 44 on an Alexa, you would know like almost immediately it's that creamy Alexa look, and like there's no whatever. But I feel way more proud that I was able to do what I was able to do with that, because going forward, I hope that one day people look back on it and assume it was one of my first Blackmagic films or something, like when it's been some years and pixel peeping isn't such a thing. I would recommend people still get it. It's a great little camera, man. But yeah, sorry. I feel like I got off track again. My bad.
That's okay. The other deleted scene was the fox and the fiddle.
Oh yeah. So that's
like an alternate.
Yeah, it was kind of an extended scene. So God, a lot of little notes. But the actor in that like we maxed out basically all of our casting abilities, and there were a couple roles like left on the outskirts. So Christian, the editor's dad, is actually Mr. Chartreuse, like one of the three mob heads. And he's a little bit more of the stiffer actor, but for me, for me, with what I knew 44 was going to be, I was perfectly fine for having like a lesser than perfect performance, because he actually like helped us with some gear. Like they have like a little rental service they call it, and they've got a couple sets of lights that they've let us use, and a big old spool of some electrical stuff that we've just used as grip equipment for a while. So having him in there was very special to me to have it. So like we did end up shooting a bit more with Mr. Chartreuse, but it didn't really pan out the best. And again, he's not an actor, he knows. I think for all of us it was just really fun to have him out. Same with Tad's dad, actually, who played the other mob head, but I feel like Tad's dad just had a lot more fun with it and got a lot more loose, and that's kind of all you have to do with indie productions. And it was fun to have him out, but by all means, I totally understood where he was coming at it from with the performance. So yeah.
You and me, Darryl, we always laugh at this because my dad's a farmer by trade, so like he's used to like banging metal together and like getting up early in the day, and like he does a lot of labor intensive work. And the day that he was shooting his scene, at the end when we wrapped and he was done, he's just like, man, acting is exhausting. He's just like, I need a nap. And it was just
I just lost it, man. I was like, man, because like, sure, like Tad's entrenched in it, but to me, I like see, once you've seen farming and how much he does, you're like, dear Lord, you're a one-man factory. And for him to call that hard work, it got me, you know what I mean? Just the difference of work, I guess. It was great though.
Is there any stories that you'd like to talk about the production, whether it was good, bad, or funny?
I mean, a quick one is that the worst thing that happened was one day we thought we lost our boom pole. That was like again on loan from Paul Gingerich, which is a producer on the film, because he lent us some audio gear for the production, and I was losing it, man. I was like, we lost his boom pole. Like I'm gutted. Like this is the worst thing ever. And it was a long shoot that we even went through without this boom pole, and it was, oh god, like 4 or 5 a.m. when we got back to London. Finally, we all pile into my house all sad, like, man, we finally messed something up on this film that's like, can't fix it. And then Taylor comes running in holding it all proud. He's like, I found it just rolled in my back seat. So like, yeah, the worst thing that happened like didn't even happen. It was again, I just say in retrospect, so little went wrong. There was a little mistake with like booking people. There was a couple like people just like the way the schedules worked out, they were booked when they didn't want to be, and that was like a last minute catch. So the odd little thing slipped through that kind of it stays with me. I feel like, man, we screwed that up, so who knows, probably doesn't even matter now. I don't know, Tad, what, you got punched in the head? I feel like we never really
I got
talk
punched
about
in
that.
the face for real. I guess there's that. The scene where I got the bag over my head and Josh puts the bag on and
which was your first
knocks-
scene filming, wasn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was. What a great day to start. Well, first of all, like I'm doing the scene with Chelsea, who is like an incredible actress. So I'm just blown away. And I'm like, well, I gotta work with that. Like no matter what, she's gonna outshine me. And then I'm doing the scene and Josh puts the bag over my head and I can't see. So I'm ready. I'm waiting to do the recoil of when he punches the head. And we did like 20 takes trying to get it right, because there'd be times where like he punches and I'm like 2 seconds late. So it's like punch. Like,
yeah,
it was just
maybe like 10 takes. I don't know if we were going
Yeah.
that crazy on that physical thing, but yeah. And I think it was more to do with like, I think you just had started to anticipate a hit once, like just slightly, like how you start to go back. Yeah. And he just at the end of Josh punching, and yeah, it's the take you see in the movie. Anytime somebody hurts himself, you always put it in there. So he just pops it, and when you throw the sound effect over it, it sells it even more. But he basically held his hand back for like maybe a second or two, like just enough so that we could use the footage. And then he just comes in and hugs Tad. And it's like, I'm so sorry, Tad. I'm so sorry. But yeah, he made it work. Like, good on him for, if you're going to accidentally punch somebody, at least you didn't ruin the take. It would have been really crappy to ruin a good old take like that. So yeah. And yeah, I got stabbed in the arm a lot. Again, I don't know if you watched the behind the scenes, you probably saw all the red marks, but yeah, there's certain certain roles you should only do yourself on super indie stuff. I'm sure we're going to get to that a bit later with a tent or Tad and crawling an event over and over again on days on end. But yeah, I getting stabbed in the arm, I thought it was going to be maybe a take or two, and it ended up being way too many takes, and we ended up breaking a knife in the process. But yeah, it was a lot of like fun stuff, oddly enough. Like, okay, one of the only like injuries on set other than the punch was our lead actress Angel, who played one of the killers, Samantha. You know, the scene where she comes to steal her car back and she hits a guy and then throws the tire iron or whatever it is at the other guy. We didn't even do it that many times, like maybe 6 takes of it. But like, I don't know, it's not that she was out of shape, or she just wasn't like stretched enough or ready enough to do as much like arm stuff. And by the end of like take 4, she was like, guys, I don't know if I can do this. And we were like, it's foam. What do you mean? So there's funny moments where like you think, like, even if you you do all the easy, if you not cut every corner, but plan ahead as much as you can, like Tad was saying, sometimes there's just the odd thing where it's like, well, damn, I never thought the repetition of such an odd task could be just as taxing on someone. So yeah, lots of little small things with 44, I'd say. I don't know if you can remember any other ones, Tad.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Like, it was about as smooth production as we've had so far on all the projects that we've done together. So yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the stories and stuff are just kind of in the bloopers, and like a lot of that kind of the fun stuff of just messing around on set and having fun. So
Let's talk about the post-production of 44 caliber. How did that come about? Or yeah.
So I forget at what point in the process it happened. I think it was probably even on set where I was thinking like, yeah, I'm probably still gonna edit this. Like I edited, me and Jamar kind of like shared editing duties on Look What You Become, but I kind of did the lion's share of that. And I was in the mood of like, yeah, I could probably edit something else long again. But once I started shooting and accumulating the footage, and like, again, it was 3 different storylines, and I was so focused on directing and shooting that the edits, not that they started to slip away, but I became a bit less focused on like exact edits and a bit more about being in the moment with my actors. And I think it was just an offhanded thing. Maybe Christian can correct me. He's got a much better memory than I do, but I think it was just an offhanded moment on set where I was just like, man, editing this, and he was like, I'd edit it, or no, okay, I remember what it was. We were talking about a movie he had previously edited, and I was like, man, like, if you're editor, like, have at it with 44. I'm like, same kind of deal where I was just like, I don't know about this edit, man. And he was gung-ho. He was like ready to tackle a full-on like feature with like lots of cutting and scenes and like this depth to it. And yeah, he really brought a lot of life to a lot of scenes. Not that many were like in shambles. I think for a lot of scenes, it was actually a fairly straightforward, like the way I'd shot it. We're like, yeah, you begin with that wide, you go in close. Or like, it was a long shot to begin the scene and nothing else. So he would have to start with that. You know what I mean? But then in the middle, he started to take a lot more like, what am I trying to say? Like, not like liberty, but like he just became more comfortable. Yes, thank you. He became a lot more confident in taking a bit of creative control with edits. And he did this thing in the middle, which I know you mentioned kind of like what was going on with the time, but I thought it was just crazy how he was kind of like, he took like the car honking and kind of separated it into 2 different places and like worked in like this cross cutting. So like, while he was getting tortured, we were hearing the phone call, and that like built a lot of tension in the edit. So like, sure, like because basically you want more of it's a really crazy thing what he did. He extends the speech and all the great moments with the torture, but maintains the distance from him phoning in and like, oh guys, like that's not the right guy. Like finding out that's not the right guy comes before. So you kind of like, not that you forget about it, but it just messes with your perception of the events in a way that like, once you hear the second honk, you're like, oh, now he's coming. So it just sets in that like, it's probably just that fraction of a bit too late. And when he showed us that, I was like, I was just sold on it. Like, it may be a little bit confusing, but it's the way these like storylines begin to overlap. And I think he did such a good job, like using the edit to show that, not just accommodating what I had shot. Like, again, like taking some creative control to tell the story through it. And yeah, I guess the biggest part of post-production that I got to talk about is the final montage. Because I don't know how do I put this. I think sometimes things happen like for a reason, or like not like magically or anything like that, but sometimes everything just aligns. And this was literally, I think, the first, okay, I gotta call it the second, but basically I had told him roughly what I was looking for with this kind of like ethereal feeling of cutting between like the past and the present and like this one singular moment, because I felt that before in real life, where you have deja vu, but like you have deja vu, but you're still doing the actions, and you feel it even more as you go through the moments. And like personifying that on screen was like, I mean, obviously her acting did a lot, but I think it was something about that, like the way he cut and like the way he took this song we had and just made such an incredible montage. And I only say it was the second cut because I believe we were like, yeah, take out that shot and that shot, and then he took it out and it was like the flow was perfect. It was very, very close to like a step up to bat home run. But yeah, it is like, it makes one of like, again, like the last 20 minutes of 44 is like some of the craziest storytelling I've ever shot. And I think it only works because of that montage. Like he did wonders. Yeah, I just can't oversell it enough. Like it was the epitome of collaboration, because I could have never edited that final. Like I was way too close to the footage. I probably would have given you a lot more like milk toast kind of exact cutting, and kind of like, I don't know what to call it. Like it just wouldn't have been the same. And yeah, Christian just brought a magic to the end of that film that like, I'm honestly, I'm surprised that like more people aren't getting him to edit our films. Like, yes, I did edit Door to Darkness, but it was like, we can basically blame COVID for it. I don't want to be that guy, but yes, we can. It was hard to transfer all the footage we had with him in Toronto and us in London. So I ended up editing this one, but like we have plans for another project down the road that he's going to be editing for us. And it's an amazing collaboration anytime we work with him. So yeah, anyone out there, if you're listening to this and want to make a feature, like Christian is amazing. Can't give him enough props. But yeah, I can't think of much else. But okay, Zach Litt, I also got to mention real quick. He's Negative Underground Society, and because of the work he did with us on the end of Look What You Become, in the final episode, and how much we went into muzzle flares and gun shootouts, he made me confident enough to develop 44. So like from the start, it was always this kind of like joint production between the two of us, well, the three of us, including Tad, and just kind of like these three productions companies together making this thing. And his whole haul was like every special effect. I can't say every. Tad did a couple special effects too, in terms of I believe the phone call stuff in this. Did you do a little bit?
A little bit of phone call,
some
and
of
I did
the
do
muzzle flares.
Yeah, I did the muzzle flares in the scene where Lana is shooting at Taylor. And,
yes.
Yeah,
but again, a lot of like the craziness, like where you can actually see the knife going through my arm, like he did a lot of great slit. Yeah, the throat slit. Like he did so much good like little special effects, because I was thinking it was all about, dreaming big and cutting back, and we knew that when we had brought it back to that point that he could really knock those little things out of the park, and he did. And like I think it really shows at the end. It's some of the stuff I've gotten the most compliments for. I mean, hell, this and what I was just saying about Christian, like that whole ending is what like most people are accolading. And I do feel like it's because there's these three plots that take so long to intertwine and come together that like it is a build up to this finale. But yeah, I think between the collaboration of everyone I've just mentioned, we all put our heads together, and like down to not just us, like Jamar and Tia did a huge amount of effort on this production, like showing up for almost every single day to help get us through this, and the actors who committed for so long. Like it wasn't just us by any means, but I mean, like, yeah, it was this post-production where we kind of came together and really found a polish to the film that made us all, I mean, the last month was just us watching cuts and looking at each other and saying, oh my God, we made a movie. It's a movie. We made a movie. So yeah, it was a fantastic collaboration process that really just, it all came together in post. I can't say much more for it. Like, yeah, Christian and Zach really stepped it up when it came to that time. And anything that was left for Tad to sweep up and grab the extras, he did. He was right there to help us out. So yeah, everybody pulled their weight, which is how you can make a movie for so cheap. Because yes, now that it's been a while, I'll say like we made 44 for $3,500, which is an infinitely small budget for a feature film. And yeah, we made that back in our first year. It took a little while, like by no means was it an overnight thing, but between the premiere and all the physical copies that we sold, pardon? Oh, 6 months. Sorry. Yeah. The first 6 months we made it back, and, you know, a couple sales here and there since, but the bulk of our stuff was making it back. And I think that was a big moment for all of us. Like, I think we planned just enough budget for this, that with the self-release way we did it, once it was actually out there, we had just kind of gotten over the hump of breaking even, which is a good thing, right? Because I think when you're talking about big budget movies where people put in tons of money, like breaking even is a whole different thing. For this, I was fine if we didn't make any money, but the fact that we did break even meant that we had $3,500, well, closer to $4, to put into our next production. I think that's essential with indie films. Like, if you can actually just no matter what you get back, put it into the next project, it can make a huge difference. It's how we shot Door so fast. I mean, it's taken a little while to release Door now, sure, but going into production on Door was much quicker because we had the ability to greenlight ourselves. Between that and the rest of the money I was saving, it was pretty clear that we could do it. So yeah, I think don't underestimate how much post-production can lead into the pre-production of another film as indie filmmakers. Because yeah, and there's still giant gaps in our releases right now, and I swear we are working like constantly to try and get this content out. Like, I've been editing for months on just trying to tweak little things. We were working on Vent for so long just to get it to its final stages. It really can overlap, and if you can have a grander picture for everything, then it makes a lot more sense, I think. If we were tackling this like the second we're finally done and broken even, now we think about going to make Vent, it probably wouldn't have functioned. You kind of have to like take the leap and go a couple productions in, but you'll know in post. I think that's a time once you know what product you're looking at, then you can kind of make some decisions. So yeah, post-production leads to pre, and then it's all cyclical. It's right back again. Yeah.
So let's talk about the promotion and release of 44 caliber. Was it any different than previous works?
Yeah, well, Look What You Become was completely free online on YouTube. So it was like there was no return basically. And it was a really weird release schedule because we got all excited to release something weekly, but I think just with where everyone was at the time, they would have probably preferred to watch the whole season at once. It just seems to be the way that most people have enjoyed in watching it. So, you know, you learn things in retrospect. But yeah, we released that weekly for a long time. And once it was finally done, we knew we kind of needed a release date, you know what I mean, for a film. So yeah, figuring out it was October at some point in 2019, I want to say, that we premiered the film, and we premiered it at the London, what's it called, the Western University,
yeah.
I forget the actual name for the theater. Western Film Theater. And it's an amazing theater, but the whole idea there was we were just going to do a basic screening, completely open to anybody who wanted to come, and the tickets were maybe, I think they were $15 or something, but that was like our, oh, it was only 10 of you. Okay. Yeah. It was $10 for a ticket. And then I forget our deal on our Blu-rays or whatnot, but I think the key part to releasing it was having Blu-rays ready to go, because the people had just seen a movie that, like you said, you kind of want to see twice. So we were able to get a lot of sales from people who had enjoyed the film and enjoyed, you know, seeing their friends and whatnot. Like, there was just a lot of,
or wanted to see behind the scenes.
Yeah, or wanted to see the behind the scenes, because we did talk a bit of behind the scenes when we were up introducing the film and whatnot. And yeah, it was a great like moment in time, because we came home that night. We had like a rap party with almost like everybody that could fit in our basement long before COVID, and it was an amazing night. But we didn't need to go that hard on advertising. We basically just used our socials to get it out to, you know, anybody who was out of town, anybody that could make the premiere, because it was a 1:00 Saturday screening in London, which was out of town for a lot of people. So there was a lot of like trickle in stuff, but we did not push, like we didn't, with a budget so small, we didn't have money to do a proper like campaign of advertising. So it had to just kind of be word of mouth. And like you said, like we just wanted to get this in the hands of like the local indie people who would, you know, view this and give it a chance. Cause like you said, I think the movie's different if you hold it to an independent standard. And like I do kind of feel that reflects in your ratings, right? Because you know this isn't like you're not, you didn't just watch Fast and the Furious 7 and then you're holding it directly in comparison to that, right? I think it's a different beast. And I think it has worked for those who have seen it, which helped with the word of mouth, which helped with the extra sales, which helped, you know, just getting us to the next project. And yeah, sometimes it's just a bit organic like that. I really don't think I don't know how much big of difference it would have made if we pushed it, because it's going to take a couple under our belt until we have any kind of name to pull in people on our name, right? Or if we're able to work with somebody bigger finally who can pull in some views. Like it's a really weird, arduous process. So I kind of knew where we were at with this, and I had really realistic plans and goals for post. So yeah, again, once we reach that in the marketing or in the post release, once I reached that point, I was able to kind of just divert my thoughts, because now it can be just completely organic. Anybody who still hasn't seen it and wants to, they will reach out and they will see it. Or we're going to make another film and they're going to see that and say, damn, well, what's your other film about? The one before this, and then they'll grab one. So I'm perfectly great where with 44 ended. I think it's perfect actually, because I mean 44 is an amazing film, but I wouldn't want it to go to my head of like an amazing first feature that like people want to scoop you up and stuff. It really can ruin your career. So as weird as it sounds, like I think it was probably as perfect as it could have went for me. Like I said, production wasn't that bad. Everyone was a great relationship on set. We had so much fun. And then when it came to post, we made our money back. So that was all I was ever really focused on. I think the people that were in it got some stuff they could use for their reels. And yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just really happy with the results. I don't know what else too much coming up with our next film. We'll probably actually have some advertising or actual campaigns and actual metrics to judge off of. It was really this kind of wild West release of 44, very akin to like the music scene, because I came from the music scene and I knew like, well, if people just made CDs and sold them at shows, what if we just made Blu-rays and sold them at our shows? Like it was just a very akin thought. And I don't know many people that were doing that, which is funny because one of the companies I follow now kind of started with that same mentality. So I do I just, you know, why not just make it? You know what I mean? A lot of people are dreaming of wanting to get one huge deal or like jump right into the spotlight. But I'm perfectly fine with taking whatever journey gets me anywhere. I'd prefer to just make art. I don't necessarily need to ever gain fame off this. I'm happy with what I made. And honestly, Justin, moments like you, where you said, you know, you appreciate my cinematography or you appreciate how bold we went to be in the story. Like hearing that from anyone just makes it feel worth it, man. Like, cause yeah, we broke even. So this hearing actual feedback and how it hit you and like, and you know, in any way, I hope this inspires people to go out and make their own films. Like, you know, I hope I inspired Tad to take the dive by going as deep as I did. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
you did. You did.
Yeah, I hope there's just, you know, people out there that see it. Like that's my bigger goal with 44. It's not necessarily all about me. Even it gave me my chance to do my first cinematography of a feature film, which was my biggest goal. And now I'm moving forward. And like I said, I enjoyed directing. I directed another film after this and I enjoyed that as well. But I really just want to shoot stuff. I think I'm a cinematographer at heart and I'm ready to fully make the transition. So yeah, it's been interesting running a company from that perspective, but that's pretty much the ins and outs of 44. I don't know if there's much more. I don't know if you've got anything from post that I didn't really touch on, Tad, or anything I haven't really been mentioning as it for me.
Not really. I mean, when it comes to marketing, I feel like marketing is still kind of the thing that we're working the most to try and find the best outlet for this kind of stuff. Like even, you know, Vent was kind of like an experiment when marketing about the whole like, oh, well, let's try Vimeo and do like a theatrical run where it's only available for a certain amount of period before it comes on physical copies are available. And our next film, Door to Darkness, that's going to be one that's kind of like also a bit of an experiment. I think marketing is kind of the thing that we're trying to figure out the most when it comes to the company. At least that's what my take of it is from. So
Yeah, I agree. Well, like I said, we didn't have the budget on 44 to go as deep into marketing as we wanted to. And now with
Yeah.
Thor, we're going a completely different route with the festival route. So marketing will actually come like after if it goes really well, or if it doesn't, regardless, it's going to come later. So yeah, weird point with marketing for sure.
Speaking of marketing, there was that billboard in 44 caliber. How did that come about?
I mean, the oldest school way possible. We had a problem and it needed a fix. We did a really good job, I think, of avoiding like big brand names or like keeping them in the shot for a long period of time. And honestly, if we reached out to whoever had that advertisement, I think it was a local vacuum company or something, but it was just
It
like
was for Vent.
no, that what was under it because we replaced it
Oh.
in post, right? So
Okay.
there was literally just like a something that was a very big brand name, and it was kind of like, well, we could ask them, we could go that route, or let's have some fun with it. So I think, but I don't even know if we had shot Vent yet, did we? Or did we have that
No,
still? It was like a
um,
pre-made or previs
yeah.
almost.
the script was done, and like the set was being built, I think, around the time. And then like you said, it just kind of came from an idea of just like, well, we need to put something in there, why not Vent? And like, it was a kind of a fun little nod to the next project that we were going to work on. And we've kind of done the same thing in Vent too. Like there is kind of an Easter egg to our next film in that movie as well. So I don't know, it's just kind of like a fun thing to do, of just kind of like hinting at what we're doing next, or like.
And then Door into Darkness goes backwards one by having a reference to Andy Kent.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but I like that you said that, because in a weird way, sure, like we have no solid plans, but I think just going forward with a loose idea of like, sure, it's in the same universe, I don't care. Some people are gonna look exactly the same because they're gonna be the same actors, but it's kind of fun to play with the idea. I don't know, man. It's
Kevin
nothing.
Smith does it with his universe, right? Like, how many actors does Ben Affleck play in those movies? Like,
Yeah,
or different characters. And then when they show up in like Jay and Silent Bob, he's playing one character, but he's also playing the other character. So
I love it, man. Yeah. So I like having the fun looseness with that. Easter eggs are fun, and again, at our level, why not? That's kind of where I saw it.
So let's talk about Vent now, like pre-production, like how you got the idea for it and setting everything up for it.
Totally. So the idea kind of came from more of a like, I want to do this. I basically set out and I wanted to do a movie with the absolute bare minimum possible. I wanted to do just one actor, one location. I watched a lot of movies that did the same thing, like Block with Tom Hardy, Buried with Ryan Reynolds. If there was a movie that had one actor in one location, odds are I saw it. Shallows with Blake Lively, Break with Brad Dourif, Arctic with Mads, all kinds of movies. Like there was, so I just kind of was like, I want to do that. I want to do something simple. So I had this want, but the idea kind of came later, where I was reading a news article, and it was about a guy who got stuck in an air duct trying to rob a pizza place. And it was there's a photo in the article of like the guy, and his entire rear end is like hanging out of the air duct, and they had to get the jaws of life to get him. And I thought that was tragic, but also kind of funny. And I was just like, that's it. Like, that's the idea. So a lot of that was just kind of like working the script out. The script for Vent was very, it was very, I worked out a lot of the nitty gritty details writing the script. So any issue that I thought I would have during production or post-production, I tried to tackle it in the script. That way we wouldn't have that any problems with that. So like, for example, one of the things was like, I would read a draft of the script and I'm just kind of like, I need to get into Andy's head a little bit more. I need like a character that he can talk to that kind of represents what he's thinking, right? And that's kind of how the idea of him hallucinating and having his dead brother show up, played by Christian, who does awesome in that role. And that kind of was like the pre-production kind of phase of just kind of working out as many kinks as I thought I would encounter. And building the set was also the same thing, because like if you look at some of the behind the scenes photo, it's basically just a wooden box with a bunch of foam glued on and spray painted so that it looks like a metallic. And all the sides of the box could be removed so that we could get different camera angles. And it was just kind of a lot of thinking about as many problems as that I would encounter and solving them so that the shoot was as quick and as good as we could get it, because we had a limited time to shoot this. We only had a week. So
Yeah, and I will add that even the Christian thing, like I think that was pretty last minute in terms of like you always had Christian in there, well, Thomas in there, but for the longest time it was like just voices he heard. So it was like in this vent he's hearing this voice that's kind of messing with him, and like wow, I mean like maybe like, do I want to say like under a month before the production, I forget what set us off, but we both got in this mood of like, he's a small person. He appears this big. He's just like this. We'll grab some dolls. We'll force perspective. But honestly, now watching it, like it's essential. Like I don't know how we could have done it just with voices. I think it would have been a lot more straightforward in a way, but in terms of like losing his mind. But yeah, we made that call fairly late in the whole process, and fully committed to it. We went with the green screen.
We did. And the green screen, oh my gosh, don't even get me started on the green screen. Little note for all you filmmakers out there who use green screen: iron the green screen so there's not any wrinkles whatsoever. We made that mistake and we ended up shooting everything with like this really wrinkled green screen. And thankfully, Jamara and you, I made that mistake.
I'm kidding. Go on.
But thankfully, Jamara, who edited the film, and you, Darryl, you guys managed to pull some magic and make it work. And it looks so good. Like there's some scenes where it blends so well.
Yeah, and we obviously know there's the two shots where you can really see the I don't know what you call it. Like you said, filmmakers know it's a bit of a green fuzz or like lack thereof almost when you do pee out the green, but it's still there. And it's on a few shots, and I will straight up say for Jamara, she did literally everything we could do. We tried different concoctions, different combinations, like yeah, we needed a better green screen. And I'm not trying, it's whatever, you live and you learn by all means, but it was like she did everything. So where it's at now is as good as we could have gotten it. So I'm at peace with it personally.
Yeah,
but really hard, especially for like I've never done heavy green screen work before. It did give me the confidence to do some green screen work with Cars in Door in the Darkness, which I think looks pretty good. But that was our first big undertaking with green screen. I think we shot the plates well though.
Yeah, it's just such a useful tool to have, so we just kind of wanted to tackle it. And we were like, hey, if at the very most this can be a learning experience for down the road, because if we can master green screen, we can do things in later movies that like would blow people's minds. Like it's a doorway that opens up to a lot of possibilities, and we wanted to really tackle it and work with it.
Yeah, I don't want to overuse it ever, but like it could be nice to even just start experimenting with like set extension and stuff, which is like the green screening that's not the easiest, but the easiest to hide in the background where people's eyes aren't drawn. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that could be a huge asset to us in a couple years. But I mean, this is how you begin. You got to start by making somebody small and go from there.
What was it like bringing the topic of mental health into the script for Vent?
Yeah, the idea for mental health was kind of like, I always thought it was interesting and I wanted to tackle it because I feel like it's something that's not talked about a lot. And I did a lot of research and made sure that I was accurate as possible. I read a lot of articles from people who have schizophrenia and they hear voices, and they always say like phone calls are the worst because you have no idea if the phone call that you're hearing is actually a person that you're talking to or if it's just in your head. And I thought that was an interesting part, especially to bring into Vent, which is primarily all phone calls. And that's kind of the magic of it all, is you have no idea what phone calls are happening and which ones don't. And even by the end, you're not quite sure of it. And I wanted that ambiguity. Ambiguity, that's it. Yeah, and even just also the kind of stigma that's attached to it, how a lot of people who have mental health issues are homeless, or they're poor, or they resort to crime because it's all they can do or all they can get. And that's something I wanted to tackle with the film. I didn't want the mental health thing to be like just a device. I wanted it to be part of the character, and I wanted it to actually say something about how mental health is viewed upon in society. So that's kind of where it kind of came about, and just kind of, and it evolved into what I think was a great little tale with an unreliable narrator.
So let's move to the production of that and how that worked out.
Yeah, like I said, the production, we basically, this was the first production where we didn't shoot weekends. We actually all took a week off work, and we shot from Sunday to Sunday. And a lot of it was just Darryl and Jamara just crashed at my place, and it was basically a 4-person crew. Tia was also there to help with on a lot of days, and it was just kind of like a fun experience of, we'd get up in the morning, we'd have some bacon and eggs and some coffee, and then we would just jump right into it, shoot all day right into the night, and we would watch all our dailies and go to bed, get up and do the same thing the next day. And it was about as close as we could get to actually working on a film set where you're shooting for like entire months. But it was kind of a nice little fun experience to shoot a week straight. And we did some like reshoots and some pickup shots later, and there was a lot of different things that we encountered during production. One of the things I'll say is I wasn't intending for me to be the actor in the film. I actually talked to quite a few people and be like, hey, like, do you want to act in this film? And it always kind of came to the route of just like, you want me to sit in a box for a week straight? I'll pass, thank you. And I was just like, okay, fair enough. I can't ask people, like, I'm claustrophobic, so getting in that box and doing a lot of the scenes was just, there'd be times where I would just have to get out and just breathe or have a drink of water, because it was just, I wouldn't recommend it. I would not recommend that experience at all. So yeah,
I think that's what makes it unique too, right? Like, I think like it's more akin to Buried in that way, whereas a lot of the other ones, like, I don't know, I just feel like there's more freedom. Like, you know, that in 127 hours they could just lift that friggin' foam rock up and he could pop out whenever he wanted, versus like when you're stuck in a box, like, you can get out, but it's not immediate. And I think that's the part. I mean, even I'm sure when people were looking over the script, like, if you had a hint of claustrophobia, it would be enough for you to say no, right? Like, I'd probably say no to it, and I'm not even that claustrophobic. It's just, it sounds like a rough role to take. So yeah, I definitely think it was worth biting the bullet on that one, Tad. I feel like any other person, we would have got to day 4 or 5 and probably had to shut down.
Oh, totally. I wouldn't even think we'd get that far. We'd get to day 3, and I imagine they would have been sick of it and just grumpy. But that's kind of the thing, right? It's just like that. I've seen a lot of people in the industry. I think the big one was what was that? I Am Mother. where the guy who made the robot suit in that is the guy who like is the robot, and the reason they did that was just like it's going to be uncomfortable, and if you got to have the robot in the suit, it might as well be me, because any design choice that I make, I'm the one that's got to suffer through it. So it's just kind of that feeling of yeah, like you said, like biting the bullet and just being like, well, if I'm gonna put anybody through this, it might as well be me. So yeah, that was kind of the production. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of it was good. It was a good experience. We had a good time.
It was a long 7 days for sure. I will say, like, it was really fun. I shouldn't come at it like that right after you say that. But yeah, I think it was, as much as it was the reason I wanted to join the project, it ended up being the thing that like slowly drove me mad. Was just like, by day 3, I had done almost everything you can do in that damn vent, and I still had 4 days of figuring out how to do more and more and more. Because like, by all means, Tad like storyboarded this entire film, which made it so much easier to shoot. He had a very clear vision. It didn't kind of didn't give us a lot of options in the edit, but it was a very clear vision of how to shoot it quickly. And yeah, but that was the thing, by day 3 and 4, like I was probably a lot grumpier than I would normally be on a set, just because it was those same 4 walls, and I kept trying to do crazier and crazier shots to make it different. And the crazier I went with the shots, the more takes we needed for me to nail the focus. Because every single shot in this movie is not autofocus, whereas I kind of leaned on that a little with the XA10 because it has great autofocus. Like just for certain, like not the whole movie by any means, but like this was my first film fully manual, and that's fine. But like when you talk about the zoom ins and the what am I even trying to say? The like Dutch angle zooms and the really quick like slider moves back and forth. Yeah, it was a really, really hard movie to pull focus on, and just staring at a box like Tad can probably attest. There were probably 4 or 5 shots that just drove me wild. We'd get like 7 takes in, and I'd be like half to tears, just like, guys, I just need 5 minutes and we can come back to this, but it's breaking me. And yeah,
but there was also, to your credit, there was also a lot of moments where I was just like, the big one was the 360 shot.
Oh,
because
God,
I was just like, I was like, I really want a 360 shot because that's what's going to sell it. Because like, again, the set is just a box. If you spin all the way around, you're just going to see where the camera's shooting. So we had to fake it so that it looked like we had to extend the set, right? So I basically was like, Darryl, like, I really want a 360 shot. And he's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Give me like 5 minutes. And 15. To Darryl's credit, he took 15 minutes. He like thought about it, came in. He was like, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And it worked so well. I am so happy with that shot. Every time I see it, I get so giddy because it's just like, oh, it worked. Like,
I mean, I've seen it enough times now. I think the hidden cuts are quite obvious to me, just because, again, cinematographers seen it a million times. But when it's fully exported, like the version that's on Vimeo, I think it looks much better than the way we were watching it. So it flows. But yeah, like Tad was saying, I mean, totally kill all the magic of it. But like the box he had designed was basically like a straight tube, like with an opening, I could shoot into the opening. And in the back, there was a box that we could take on and off that was like the corner. So like where he crawled in. So we had to use that strip of box for like where he enters the vent, crawls, and then we had a corner piece where we could shoot him turning the corner and doing the light. Then once he was in the straight tube, the way we could actually achieve that 360 was by like while the camera was facing the wall, doing an invisible cut, and then basically turning the entire box around, but switching the side of the it was a weird like mathematical equation. We had to switch the side that had the vent on it so that it would look like it was on the right side, and then we put the square box upside down on the other end so that it would appear like it was like the way that the layout looks. and yeah, through some red lighting and like the fake crawling, and then while it's in the rest of the turn, you hear like the patter patter of the whatever approaching him, and it creates this like suspenseful build up to I get it's a jump scare. I feel like people have been messaging me like, wow, yeah, the jump scare works because you didn't make a movie full of jump scares. You made one jump scare that's out of a dream even. So like, I think, yeah, that 360 shot is like definitely my baby of the film. It was like you said, I don't know how I did it in 15 minutes. I think I had read it in the script when he wrote it, and like when you read something like that, your brain starts building a plan B in case he really, really wants to try it. And it was just, like I said, the hardest part was figuring out how to essentially flip everything upside down to be able to make it look like this vent was what, 15 feet long instead of 7. Yeah. And it was crazy, like down to the part where like when Christian and Tad are in the vent, like behind Christian, we literally just like draped black sheet to cut out all the light. Like there's no vent behind Christian, and they're like when they're actually face to face, and he like I remember both of them on set looked at me like this isn't gonna work, and then it cut, so it did work. But it's one of those like we had to do some stuff on this movie that was like the epitome of cut, like the good kind of cutting corners where you trust that the audience won't see more than they will. So the fact that people haven't been messaging me like, wow, it was okay, but like I saw a whole bunch of bad stuff. You know what I mean? Like the fact that they're just not noticing at the bare minimum a lot of I'm on video right now. Sorry. Oh, I'm good. But yeah, no, yeah, I don't know. I love that shot. I love a lot of the little bits of magic that are in Vent. Because yeah, the force perspective was really hard to smush this in. This is my cinematography blurb for Vent, because I don't want to talk too much more. Well, I want you to kind of handle Vent. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I loved shooting on old vintage lenses to kind of give it a look of like a mix of digital and vintage that kind of swayed really well. And yeah, Tad constantly gave me things that were like these little hurdles of cinema to slowly knock away at over 7 days. And yeah, that was my whole point. It was arduous, but it was fun. And looking at the results, I'm really damn proud that Vent looks that good. But yeah, that's my cinematography blurb. Real quick, you guys keep doing Vent. I'm just gonna make my coffee. I warmed up some water. I'll be right back.
Okay. Sounds good.
Is there anything else you can add, like story-wise, from behind the scenes?
Yeah, like we encountered the occasional issue shooting the things. A lot of it was like getting Lana down from Toronto and figuring out when she would shoot. And thankfully, like the fact that it's all in one location really helped, because we can just move the box wherever we need it to be. We shot most of it in my garage, which was nice. We blacked out the windows and made sure that all the lighting inside was completely 100% controlled. Yeah, like man, what else was there that like happened on set? It was just a slog, I guess, a little bit in a way, because like especially for somebody like Jamara, because Jamara was often doing multiple things at once. She was recording sound, she would do the clapper, like it was pretty much everybody on set was doing multiple things. Even me as the actor, I would occasionally get out and just kind of be like, okay, like look at the shots, or like plan things, or like rehearse dialogue kind of things. It was just kind of a good set where we had a very small crew. It was only like 4 people max. We had a couple times where like people were like, I'm gonna come down and visit, and they got busy or some reason or another. But yeah, it was what about you? What do you think, Darryl? Was there any interesting stories during the production event?
The mouse was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It took a long time to get that mouse. We ended up freeing it after. It was still great weather out, and it wasn't immediately eaten by a bird or anything. So we know that it got somewhat of a little bit of existence outside of a snake cage.
Yeah.
which, whatever, that's how you got to feed snakes by all means. But it just happened that there were some spare mice and we needed a mouse. And took a lot of takes to get that one. That was a fun little never work with animals moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
a lot of it was
man.
like pushing the mouse to the side and be like, just stay there, and then you would like wait for it, and then it would be like get a little adventurous and scurry off, and you were just trying to get
and
the
again,
mouse to do what we
manual
needed.
focus. I had to manually focus to whatever that mouse wanted to do. Yeah, it was a little wild.
Never
what
work
else,
with
man?
animals.
Were there, I'm trying to even think, like we got so deep into Vent that like it felt like a factory at times. I don't even know if there were like crazy things. We were just so fixed on getting this story done. Even like, again, the mouse, that's like months after we had actually filmed the 7 days.
Yeah. And even then we didn't have the actors, like, because there are other actors in the movie, but all of their dialogue was recorded after we finished shooting.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it was just kind of I guess just the nature of the film being one person in one location, there's not a lot of stories to talk about. It was, like you said, just kind of like a factory of just kind of like getting everything that we needed and making sure that the days counted. Oh, what about the day that we lost footage and we have no idea how that happened?
Yeah, that's fun. The fact that it's also happened on like 2 other productions is like wild to me at this point. It's probably just the Samsung T5 I record onto, and how many times I've been recording onto it, I'm sure. But we've had this happen a couple times now where we're recording. Well, I guess this was the one where we had audio proof. The other one we've lost the audio to. But yeah, like literally there was a full scene that we have every single audio take. You can hear the camera start recording, like you can hear the beeps, and the footage is just gone. Like I have no idea. My one theory is that a card was accidentally named the same, like A002, and then that meant like the very last few numbers overlapped with a few numbers because it will like auto like take the place of it. That's my best guess. But yeah, lost a bit of footage. The crazy thing was we went back to film it, and I forget what the difference was, but it was like, oh, we're gonna film it like this, and it was like so happy we had to reshoot it. It was just a moment of everything working out. But yeah,
it was a problematic scene that we ended up being able to go back and fix. So
yeah, let's talk about the post-production of it and the struggles working with one actor in the scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the editing was the big, like they always say when you're making a film, you tell a story 3 times, one in the script, one in the camera, and one in the edit. The editing was a big part of this movie. Thankfully, we had Jamara edit the film, and she just nailed it. Like there were so many scenes, like the montage of him killing time in the vent, and so many different scenes that just worked because she put it together like a puzzle piece, and it was incredible. Like it was always fun showing up at those guys' house and be like, want to watch the newest cut of Vent? I'm like, yes, let's do it. And there'd always be something new or some little flavor that she brought to it that it was always just like, it's awesome. I love it. Like very rarely did I have notes. Like there was kind of like one cut really early on where I had a lot of notes of being like, okay, like try this, more of that. But like more often than not, it was just like letting these guys do their thing, and they pulled off an incredible cut of the film.
Yeah, Jamar did a great job. Yeah, talking a bit to what you were saying about the single actor, kind of from my end of it, getting to see all the nitty gritty. Basically, kind of like Tad was saying, any scene that was like we shot a lot of like coverage of, or had some fun with, or experimented with, she had a lot to work with, and I think those scenes it really shows. It was just part of the factory thing we got into, where Tad had such exact storyboards that I shot less coverage on vent than I've ever done in my career. Like it was very like, okay, man, you want the first half from the single angle and you want the second half from a second angle, and that's it. And he'd sign off on it, and we would kind of decide that. And yeah, and then in the edit, Jamara would be like, why in the hell did you guys shoot this from only two angles? Where do I cut it? And I like, there would be moments where, not that we made like overconfident assumptions, but I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Tad's original vision was a little less cutty. It was a little more like, let this shot be this part and let this shot be this part. And over time, I kind of started weaning, like the scenes I knew that had a lot of stuff going on. I was like, let's just get a bit of coverage. Let's overlap these a little bit. And again, it really shows in the edit. I think there's just a few scenes where, you know, we were confident it was only a couple takes or a couple angles. And yeah, Jamara would just sit there a couple nights trying to edit one single scene, trying to get one single scene better, and like pulling some wild stuff. There's like moments of shots that are like reversed and have the audio removed that you'd never know because she could make a little splice somewhere. Like, yeah, she did some amazing stuff with vent. But yeah, that was it. I've learned that I'm always going to shoot a little bit of coverage, at least with these indie productions. That's it. You know, like you said, it's a one-person film though. Like sometimes it works. I feel like Barry did a really good job of holding on a single angle for a whole scene, but because Ryan Reynolds is just going from top to bottom, and like that wouldn't have necessarily fit in this film. But we had seen the long takes work before, so I think we were just a little extra confident about that going in a little bit. But yeah, that's it. You know, any single person film, I'm sure, has entered these problems at one point or another. I don't think I'd be really surprised if anybody went in that confident of something with so many variables when you only have one person. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like the big one that kind of stands out in my mind is the scene where he's on the phone and Kat is dying. Yeah. And that was all just one take, one shot, pulling back. And it's one of those things where like I went into it with this kind of idea of like, oh, well, I want a lot of these shots in the film to have purpose, right? Like I want a lot of the shots to say things. So like a scene like that, I don't want a lot of cutting. I just want you to sit with the character, and I want you to like experience it. Like you're watching this, and like we're not going to cut away to a different shot or anything like that. Like sit and watch it kind of thing. And especially when like a scene like that, which is emotionally taxing on the character. Looking back at it, it's one of those things where it's like, I probably could have had my cake and eat it too. And I could have like got a lot more shots to edit from that and still have that feeling. So
well, even so, like I think the scene you just mentioned works. Like I think that one is one where you can hold on. Like there's, I mean, maybe it would have been nice to get a close up of like your real emotion and like maybe some more like hard tears or something like that. But it would have been hard to make that all work in one cut. For me, it seems like I mean, not trying to call it out or anything, but like I know Jamar had a lot of trouble with the first call he receives from the 9-iron, because we only did this like rotating shot, which is sick, but like we didn't have backup on that, and it made it so fucking hard. So hard to cut around. Like it was a bold choice we made that could have worked, but for the phone call and how like high the demands were, I think we just, you know, you can admit it, there's missteps here and there, but like that would have been a scene I wish we got coverage on. But no, I'm glad you had the balls to hold on some things, man. And we wouldn't have got the 360-degree shot if we didn't, you know, want to do some of that. So it's just a balance, right? You know, first time director, second time DOP. Like we're not gonna get it 100% right.
No, and that's the thing. Like I definitely look at this film as like a learning experience, and I definitely look at the film as like, okay, well, where can I go from here as like a director? And hopefully the next one is even better.
Oh yeah.
So is there anything that you wished you could have done differently for either film, or like added anything that now you're like, oh, that would have been good?
44, I would have shot my pants down scene the night I wanted to and not left it till a year, not a year later, but till the next year when I had to actually do the pickup of it. That was like one of my few, like, wow, we should have just got this. Like, it would have sped up the release of that film. But regardless, that's my one odd regret from 44. Otherwise, like I said, I sit in a really good place with 44 in my mind. Anything for Vent, Dad?
Honestly, the only thing that kind of comes to mind is I might have shelled out a little bit more money and get an actual like actor into the lead role. Like not crapping on my performance by any stretch of the imagination. Like I am happy with what I did. I'm just, it would have been nice to have focused more on the directing and the edit, like it would have been nice to have focused on other things and not have to worry about also delivering a performance as well.
I mean, you also had way less time to prep for it. Even you probably got double the time in 44, and that was kind of last minute. So
yeah,
you were. It was really kind of late when we kind of made the call that you would fully be the person, and by that point, you had written the lines, but you didn't have that much time to really, I don't know, dig into the character.
Yeah. Maybe that's too. Maybe if I had more time to dig into the character, I would have been able to know exactly how to deliver each line, and we for at the same time we did also like improvise a little bit and try different things and do different takes, and again it kind of works to Jamar. It shows Jamar's talent as an editor. She took a lot of the best takes and just kind of merged them into the best we could get when it comes to this performance, and I think it works pretty well. So
let's talk about the release for Vent. What caused that decision? Like, it was probably COVID, but was it always on your mind to release it digitally or something like that?
I definitely wanted to do a theatrical screening like we did for 44, but like you said, COVID kind of got in the way, and it just got to the point where it's just like, you know what, let's just put it out digitally. Like a lot of the industry is kind of going towards that direction of like, especially during COVID, where a lot of movies were just like, hey, like we're dropping the movie on the streaming service and you can watch it. And a lot of it also was just kind of the experimentation of it all. Like I said, like we kind of wanted to experiment with the idea of doing like a theatrical run where you can watch it at home. You have a limited amount of time. You have 2 months to, watch it. And after that, it gets pulled off the streaming service and it'll be available for purchase, like physical copies later on. So it was just kind of like a lot of experimentation with the release and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Just kind of fiddling around, I guess, and seeing if this is a potential avenue for future films. And so far, it's been not bad when it comes to like the response has been really, really positive. And yeah, we'll see where it goes in the future.
Researching which platform took a long time too, right? Like we were looking into the actual specifics of like what returns you get from a lot of them, because some of the like larger ones that will accept, less like more independent work, they have really low returns, like Spotify-esque returns.
Not even returns, like a lot of it is like standards too. Like a lot of it's just like, oh, like you have to meet certain qualifications. You have to, like for YouTube, you have to have like a certain amount of subscribers. Like I think like you have to have at least 10,000 subscribers or something like that in order to put their movie on their streaming service. So that right there is just like, well, can't do YouTube, throw that out. And like,
it was just kind of like knocking off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, like you said, a lot of it was just knocking off and finding the one that worked the best. And Vimeo seemed to be the one that was like the most relaxed and also had like a really good when it comes to returns. Like they take 10% off of whatever you make and the rest goes to you. So I was like, that's kind of cool.
versus some crazy percentages from other places. We don't need to go around. Like,
Yeah.
people can research for themselves. But yeah, it was. And for me personally, I was always kind of pushing and gunning in the Vimeo route, because on other streaming services, you sometimes you don't have a guarantee about like the, how I say, like the resolution streaming, like the constant bit rate, I guess you would call it. Versus like Vimeo was like a fully uploaded thing, and you are just viewing it as if it's like a YouTube video, right? So the only lag is on your internet side. But as long as that's fine, you are watching the full quality of the film. Because a nice part about 44 also was that, like, both these films were shot natively in 1080 and mastered in 1080, which, you know, like, sure, a lot of people will shoot in 4K and D-Res, that's fine, but you're losing detail essentially by doing that, right? So with these projects, we really wanted to, like, maintain fidelity, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is like, we, like, exactly what I shot, like in the fullest quality you could call it, is on Vimeo and on the Blu-ray for 44. It's been kind of a big part of at least our first few productions, because we didn't want anything subpar holding us back, you know. Like I said, we viewed a lot of our cuts, watching it back was in half quality. So now that we finally got to see the full quality every time, because I just have a copy of it on my laptop where I can watch it whenever I want, and it's like, that is the movie. Those are the darks, like the blacks that I shot, and the highlights that I shot. And yeah, it feels great. And also, we didn't really mention, I don't know if you did while I was away, but Jamara also color coded or color graded the whole film. We did shoot that, and it was ProRes, but it was fairly raw. So she did an amazing job, like, maintaining this kind of like steely blue look, and a lot of work in that opening scene, kind of getting that blue that slowly fades in as the sun sets in dusk. Like, yeah, like, there was a lot of hard work color grading wise that Jamara killed. Yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah, and that, I think that speaks a lot to Jamara and Darryl as filmmakers, when I can say something like, "Oh yeah, this scene I wanted to get darker and more blue as it goes along," and they just look at me like they just want to, like, grab me by the neck and say, "Why are you giving us more work to do?" And they do it, and they pull it off. Like, it's incredible. I love that. I love the transition between scene to scene or shot to shot, where it just kind of gets more and more closer to night, and it's very subtle. You don't pick up on it, but until it happens, and you're just like, oh, beautiful. Like,
it was nice to have a happy customer. That's at the end of the day. I feel like I was very able to achieve what Tad was looking for, which I think at the end of the day is the goal of any cinematographer, which is very nice to actually just wear that hat and focus on that. And yeah, gotta say thanks, man. Like, if I didn't shoot Vent, I wouldn't have been like fully decided that I want to do this, just this for the rest of my life, and not directing. But yeah, man, it was great to help fill your vision, and I think Jamara did just as much work in terms of that, and getting it, like you said, in the final edit of everything. Yeah, I mean, it was great to work with you on these projects so far, and, you know, the one that we already worked on that isn't out yet.
Yep, and more to come, that's for sure.
Yep.
Is there anything that we missed that you'd like to add about either film?
Not really anything on my end besides, like, again, thank you to everybody that's ever helped us on these films. Like, it really matters. Like, it's a gigantic list to list, but or list to name off, but, like, yeah, there's so many people that sometimes they just come out for a day and it made everything, like, every bit of difference. Like, down to, like, you know, we had a lot of people come out for 44 to just be thugs that just got shot and died. You know what I mean? Like, but to do that, they drove from London to Petrolia. They waited while we lit sets. They worked out blocking with us, and you know, like, for 10 seconds of screen time sometimes, and like, that stuff really matters. Like, I will never forget any of those favors for the rest of my life. Like, down to the guy who found me the 8mm camera. I couldn't find one. It was one of those rare periods where just nobody I knew had one, and the camera shows weren't up yet. And yeah, I had one friend who's I forget, grandma or aunt had a spare one, and I went down to Guelph and I met up with him, and we literally met for maybe 20 minutes, but that helped make 44 and I thank him for it. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy how many people it takes sometimes. It takes a village. And then on the other side, we did like no people for Vent. So it can always vary, but you know, even down to that, we had Spencer who was helping pay for like a little bit here and there by throwing us some
Yeah.
money for it because he couldn't make it out. Like we had, you know, there's always little people helping. Well, that's the wrong way to say it. There's always like slivers of help you can receive from anybody, and it can be the sliver that makes a difference. I think that's it. Just all the slivers put together make a 2x4. That's a movie, you know.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Like these movies could not be made without the people that helped on it, even just a little bit, even just something as like coming out and like lightening the mood, whereas like if we're having a long day of shoot and somebody's just like having some fun with it, and like it's just, yeah, like I again 100% agree, Darryl. Just everybody that comes out and helps out with these things, we really do appreciate it. And especially like, not naming any names, but it does happen every now and then where you get somebody who's like, yeah, I'm gonna come down and help out, and you start planning around that, and then they don't show up for one reason or another, and you have to throw all your plans out the window and start from scratch. So the people that actually do like show up and like help out and lend a hand, or even any hand whatsoever, it really does make things go a lot faster, and it makes the movies sell and work a lot better.
Totally.
Is there anything that you'd like to promote before we go?
I mean, go check out Vent. That's our latest release
guess.
right now. Go check it out on Vimeo if you haven't seen it. I mean, if you haven't seen it, there's a little bit of spoilers, but yeah, no, it's definitely worth the watch while it's still out on Vimeo. Again, there'll be physicals eventually. Find out more at OrangeHatFilmProductions. Is it production or productions.com?
Yes.
I just don't want to say it wrong. Productions with an S.com. Yeah, that's got mostly everything on our website. Even the all the info that's out there so far on our next project, which, you know, started as like a little podcast, and we kind of took the idea and ran with it. And yeah, you know, keep your eyes peeled for that sometime next year. I mean, as of right now, we're planning to shoot something like very soon in the new year. And that's going to be kind of Vent style, of like a very small crew out in Petrolia knocking off like something real quick. So that might actually be out before Door into Darkness. We don't really know at this point. It all depends on how everything goes. But yeah, to stay updated, check out the website. In the new year, the Instagram's getting a new fresh, I don't know what you call it, look. It's being run a lot more properly in the new year. We're kind of approaching it differently. So go follow Orange Hat Film Productions for more info on that. And I'm sure when the switchover happens, I'll post all about that. But yeah, I'm excited. We're gonna have some proper content coming out next year and a couple more films in the can. So yeah, just keep your eyes peeled to this stuff. Check out Vent. Grab a copy of 44. We have a Black Friday sale right now on. If you're watching currently or whenever you see this, I'm sure there'll probably be a sale on for a little bit. But yeah, we've got some hats on the website. We've got some buttons. We got posters. We got Blu-rays. We got DVDs. I think, or at least on pre-order for some Blu-rays and DVDs. But yeah, just check it out, man. Support indie film. I can't say that enough every time we talk about this. There's some amazing stuff in Southern Ontario. And yeah, I hope Justin covers some more little bubbles of it and kind of exposes it, because it's out there, and it's sometimes a lot better than us. I mean, not down talking us, but there's some amazing stuff in Southern Ontario. So yeah, just keep watching and supporting. That's all I can ask.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. So.
Yeah, I think that was it. That's all the questions I had. You both answered, so
Awesome.
Beauty. Thanks so much for having us, Justin.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
Thanks
I love
for
Power
you.
Hour.
Great. And thank you so much for reviewing. Like and yeah, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun getting to talk about it. And
yeah.
Yeah, man. Keep on keeping on.